First of all, I got notice of this from the Speaker's office only when I saw the email, but it had been raised with me, and I went to make a point of order in the House of Commons to ask what was going on. And the Speaker's statement is pretty self-explanatory, has already been read out. But behind it lie a whole series of concerns for people like me. I've been sanctioned by the by the Chinese government. So, you know, should I go to a country that is an extradition treaty? There's every chance they'll do what's called a red notice on me and others. So, you know, they've interfered already in Parliament. That to hear, as we did, that there's been an individual that is clearly paid for, but it sounds like from the Chinese state, as an agent of the state, has been in Parliament for some considerable time, even up until this morning, and that they're now kicked out of Parliament, passes revoked. But I want to know from the government, what in heaven's name are they doing? After all, I understand that this woman arranged money and donations to the Labour Party, that she met David Cameron, that she was given an award now, it turns out, from the Prime Minister at the time, Theresa May. I mean, this got around, and it's beginning to unravel, and the money that I was just hearing now on your report just left me breathless. So I really need to know more, and I think we have a right to know more. What is going on here? And if this person has been involved in spying, and their son or whatever involved in what I think is clearly a form of spying, then why are they still in the country? You know, I hear that they're not going to be kicked out. Well, I have to say that's wrong. I mean, if they're agents of one foreign state, and particularly a disgustingly violent, nasty organization like the Chinese Communist Party that is guilty of genocide and abuse, why in heaven's name is such an agent allowed in the country? So these are big questions that we want the government to answer, and the House of Commons needs to make it very clear what they're going to do about future security.
The Labour MP, Barry Gardiner, who employed Ms Lee's son, has spoken out today. He told Sky News that he's been liaising with our security services for many years about Ms Lee. And for me, that is the sentence that stuck out the most from what he told Sky News in terms of why was he liaising about security services with Ms Lee? Why was money still being accepted? What do you want to know from Barry Gardiner about his involvement with the Lee family?
Well, I think that we need to open up. We will only really understand where it's gone wrong and what we do about it if this becomes very clear and public. If MI5 have intervened to make sure an individual now, or up until this morning, in Parliament, has to leave because of the security concerns that they've raised, that's a very serious issue. And if it is the case that Barry Gardiner, I know very well, has been involved with them, then I'd like to know more about what's going on. I think we in Parliament now, and particularly people like, it's not a self-pleading for myself, but a number of us have been sanctioned by the Chinese government. And, you know, we've been working with people trying to flee Hong Kong from this abusive regime and the terrible arrests that have been taking place of democracy campaigners. And I'm now concerned that our offices may well have been targeted because we have information about who some of these people are. You know, I'm a member of the thing called Interparliamentary Alliance on China, and, you know, we do a lot of work to try to help those who are, you know, for freedom and democracy and freedom of speech. And I don't want us to be this source of information about them that goes back to the Chinese government, for them to be arrested or their families to be abused. This is a serious, serious issue and has massive repercussions. So I think we absolutely have to come clean. The government has got to come to the dispatch box, has got to make a statement. I'd like to see it today, but, you know, sometimes Thursdays are not a great day, but I do want it now, and I think we really need to know.
Yeah, Ms Lee hasn't been arrested, but we understand remains under investigation by security services. And as you said, the first you heard about this was the email that went out from the Speaker of the House to MPs, and it came from the interference alert issued by MI5 that said Ms Lee had been engaged in political interference activities on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party, engaging with members here at Parliament and associated political entities. For those watching who may not be familiar with China's tactics and what kind of information they'd be trying to get from the British government, what are the vulnerabilities here for the British government? What kind of information would China be trying to get?
Well, here's one, for example. I'm a Privy Councillor. Many of the public may not understand what that is, but it does mean occasionally I will get briefings from the government with security information information about government activity, which is not in the public domain. As a Privy Councillor, that's called Privy Council briefings. So there are many people in Parliament in that situation. So that immediately makes Parliament a very good target, because that sort of information does come into Parliament earlier than it goes into the public domain. There are other areas too, lots of work that parliamentarians are doing, like I mentioned, to do with helping people in foreign climes. It's also, it seems to me, that the purpose was to persuade, subvert parliamentarians. I mean, you were talking earlier on in your programme about the amounts of money that have been transferred into Parliament from this organisation. And as MI5 have made clear, and Parliament has made clear now, through very dodgy setups to mask where their money was coming from, this is all part of the subversion process. So the Chinese government, and by the way, we need to remind ourselves, this is an awful government. You know, it's arresting people in Hong Kong for nothing more than peaceful protest for democracy. It's guilty, we believe, and Sir Geoffrey Nice's tribunal has come out and said they're guilty of genocide of the Uyghur people in Xinjiang, you know, forced sterilizations, re-education camps for children, slave labor, all of these things in Tibet as well, and Christians and all the others, and threatening Taiwan. This is a very dangerous regime, and if they're now infiltrating Parliament and government, it could easily be through Parliament, then this is serious, serious stuff.